Welcome to another video. This morning I'm in Canmore at Rundle Forebay, and today we're going to try some underwater photography, but on a budget. Now I'm not going to be using this because underwater housings for DSLRs can cost thousands of dollars to get a good one. Instead, I'm going to be using this GoPro and this. Now, if you've watched my channel before, you may have seen my video when I was doing some photography with the GoPro Hero 10. And I was trying some half under, half over water photography with it, but it did come with a few challenges. And just recently, Telesin got in contact with me and offered to send me one of these GoPro domes. So there's obviously some advantages to using this over just using the GoPro on itself. One of the main issues I was having with the GoPro was to get it lined up so that the water level was halfway across the lens was really challenging. Because the lens is so small, you only had a really small margin of error where an inch up or an inch down would mean you were completely underwater or completely over water. This GoPro dome is designed exactly for that and to make that much easier. So the dome here actually pushes that water away from the lens and gives me a much bigger margin of error. So now, as you can see, I've got 4 or 5 inches up, 4 or 5 inches down to get that water level just right. So it's going to make it loads easier to compose. So first location, as I mentioned, is Rundle Forebay, just in Canmore. And there's a few rocks just under the water, and you can see the light is just starting to hit those mountains behind. So let's give it a go. This is a pretty simple piece of kit, but I think it's gonna be pretty effective. Let's pop the GoPro in. You just pull this latch up, pop it in the front here. And obviously the GoPro Hero 10, 11, 12, they're all waterproof anyway down to a certain level, but this does make it waterproof to about 30 meters, so adds a bit extra in. And then you've got this handle here that actually folds up onto the top, and then this little trigger here lines up with the shoot button on your GoPro. So you can easily take a picture just by holding the trigger. You've got access to your power button and your record button nice and easily on the outside of this as well. You can just about see what you're composing through the back screen, but I think what I'm going to end up doing is connecting this to my phone so that I can tell a little bit more where I'm pointing the camera. So it is definitely making it a lot easier to compose. Just having that dome in the front there is just giving me a lot more room to play with. However, one thing I am noticing is I don't think there is any hydrophobic coating in any way on the dome itself. So that means like water's not running off of it at all. And you're getting water droplets kind of sat on there. And I'm really noticing that if I'm putting the camera kind of underwater and then pulling it out to compose, the water just doesn't run off. And that is going to show up in the final results, I think. So what I'm having to do is actually just kind of wipe down the front of the lens and dry it off a bit. And then just make sure I'm coming from the top down and not getting the top half of the dome wet. So then I don't get those water droplets in the front of it. So after a bit of trial and error, I did start to get some okay results, but I think I could do better. And now a couple of issues I'm having right now with this is low light and kind of scale and perspective. So obviously the GoPro has a pretty small sensor, so that means dynamic range isn't great, and underneath the water is pretty dark still. It also has a really wide angle lens, so it spreads everything out and makes stuff look quite small, especially mountains in the background. So what I'm really after is a lake where the mountains are really close and look really large. And I think also waiting until the sun's up a bit more and we get more direct sun into the lake, that's going to produce better results. Obviously, I came here originally at sunrise because that's when you get the best light most of the time, but I think in this situation I just need more light. So what I'm going to do is there is a really nice little lake just up here between east end of Rundle and Harling called Grassy Lakes. And in about half an hour, by the time I've walked up there, the sun's going to hit that. And Harling is really close to that lake as well. So hopefully we'll get some good perspectives. I think we might be onto something here. As you can see, Harling Peak behind me there is just towering above the water. It's really close to the lake, so I think that will make it appear much bigger in the composition. And you can see as well, we're getting plenty of light coming through now as it's a bit later in the morning, and it's directly hitting the water, which is gonna light up anything that's underneath the water. And I mean, just look at the color of this lake. Definitely a little tough getting the right light with this thing. Like I mentioned earlier, I needed more sunlight to illuminate the foreground kind of underneath the water. And that is making the exposure a bit more consistent between the mountain and the underwater subjects. However, if you get the wrong angle, due to the way the kind of water settles on the dome, you're getting some quite nasty glares. So you've really got to get just the right angle that we're not facing directly into the sun, but we are getting the light underneath. So I'm having a bit of a play with all the angles. And it is turning out a little bit better up here actually, because there is some really interesting kind of foreground just underneath the water, and the water is incredibly clear here at Grassy Lakes. It's definitely working much better here at Grassy Lakes than it was down at Rundle Forebay. And I think this will definitely be coming with me next time I do some kind of beach holiday, like photographing coral reefs or turtles or fish underneath, and then kind of islands and palm trees in the background on the top. That would be pretty awesome. Coming around the other side of the lake here is just kind of lined up the sun like a little bit nicer. I can kind of hide the sun itself behind the trees, so that's getting rid of some of the glare. And I've found a couple of little spots here where the foreground's maybe a bit more interesting. I've got some kind of wood underneath the water here that offers a bit of a leading line. And just here we've got some kind of rocks and gnarly roots right by the front here. And then in the midground there's actually quite a large rock. And what I like about that is the shape of that rock really mirrors the shape of Harling Peak up in the background. So I think that's probably one of the better shots that I've got today, just combining all those elements together. But it's definitely challenging. I wish I had some waders so I could get right in the water and get right close up to kind of any foreground I needed. But it's still good fun. After having a bit of a play and balancing out a composition as best I could from the shoreline, I ended up with this. Now it's not perfect, but certainly starting to get there. And it does show that there is some potential to get some great shots of this dome, if you can just get everything to align. That was a good bit of fun this morning, playing around with this GoPro dome from Telesin. Like, I'm not getting the world's best underwater, overwater kind of half-half images, but then I'm not using a DSLR, I'm using a little GoPro. And it's a cheap little setup and a lot of fun, and I've had great fun playing around with it this morning. And most importantly, it's got me outside as well. And that's one of the things I love about photography, is using it as an excuse to come to beautiful places, especially early in the morning when they're really quiet. So for me, that's what photography is all about, just enjoying yourself and having a play around. If you are interested in maybe picking one of these up for yourself and giving it a go, or picking up anything else from Telesin, there is a discount code in the description below, as well as a link to the website. They've got lots of different gadgets, and especially for GoPros and lots of other bits. So go and check it out. Now, if you do want to support the channel, I have put together some really detailed location guides with GPS coordinates for locations in Banff National Park, as well as the Icefields Parkway. So check those out in the link in the description below, and you can download one of those, and then you won't miss out on any of those once-in-a-lifetime images whilst you're here visiting the Canadian Rockies. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you on the next one.